think with that, we just go ahead and get started because there's a lot of interesting stuff in this presentation.
Yep.
And, there will be a recording and I'll edit our 10 minutes of chatting about the weather out. um, but I'll just say thanks to those of you who've joined us. I really appreciate it. And, I don't know if Matt really needs much introduction. I know he'll tell you more about himself if you don't already know who he is, but um, he's super great to talk to us about security, which is really important and a lot of fun to be around, as you might have guessed. So I'm just going to turn it over to you, Matt, and let you go forward and have fun.
So I was actually going to let Cody do the talk today, but he's been a bit quiet today, so I think I'll go ahead and take over for Cody. So, but anyway, Matt Meyers, as Janine has mentioned, I've been working in the Salesforce ecosystem 19 plus years now. I'm a Salesforce CTA, and pretty much my mission in life is educating people on how to keep their data secure in Salesforce. So, and also wrote a best-selling book about a story where a customer got hacked in Salesforce. So, if you want to catch it, you can probably find it on Amazon, Securing Salesforce Experiences. Anyway, so today we're going to be talking about how to communicate data security risks with the C-suite. And there's the agenda there. We're going to be talking about addressing the systematic org gaps, how you can actually calculate what your risk is and revenue impact, and some other fun topics that we'll kind of go into. So first off, let's talk about addressing systematic org security gaps. So if anyone knows me, I love my metrics. So I always talk about metrics. I think they're great. So the first thing is the real cost of data breaches is $205 million billion was the recent cost of the Jaguar Land Rover breach. If you don't know about that, and it was just kind of hard because it's been all over the news, it was Jaguar Land Rover experienced a data breach which extended all the way down to their manufacturing plants, and so basically what happened, they had to shut down the plants, and some of them were third parties, some was direct. I think to JLR direct was about 200 million, but then the extending cost was 2.5 billion, and they ended up having to get a bailout from the British government, and new legislation came for that. So this can give you an extreme case about the cost of a breach. Not, of course, all of them are this much, but that shows you kind of the extent of how it can come, especially if it starts impacting your downstream systems and downstream, especially manufacturing. So far, there's been 71 lawsuits filed against Salesforce after the recent data breaches in 2025 for all the connected app issues and Gainsight and all those others that happened. And we did a research study. This is not Salesforce, but we did a research study of some of the customers that were breached against several of the vendors. And basically 70% of the customers said they would leave after a company after a data breach. So that, if you imagine just that cost alone, even let's say 10% is kind of the norm, or a part of the norm, let's say 70% say 10% leave. If you're a $15 billion company, even $1 billion company, that's a lot of money. And then think about how much it costs to gain those customers back. So really want to talk about today is why are these metrics so high? And actually, I'm going to throw in another bonus metric for you guys too. It takes 206 days to detect a breach, not solve it, not all that, just for the detection only. So again, imagine someone's in your system for 206 days in your Salesforce, poking around. I love house analogies. They're walking around your house, opening the doors, and you don't even know they're there. And that actually what's happened with Coca-Cola. I think it was a year that someone was in there slowly siphoning their data off. So let's dive into now, like I said, talking about where's these issues? Where does it happen? What's the problem? Why does this actually, so many organizations getting breached? Well, it starts really, like I say, everything starts at the top. So the C-suite is the first place where that failure is happening. So a lot of them are, of course, lacking that awareness of risk in Salesforce. They're hearing Salesforce say, Salesforce is trusted, Salesforce is safe, it's a secure platform. Well, it is, except for, according to my friend Steve Simpson, who told me Salesforce is secure until the day you start configuring it. And that's what really this is all about. And they get that false sense of security. You have generic compliance and security reviews that are being pushed down and that are not Salesforce specific. They're asking things like, do you have role-based security? Well, yeah, every Salesforce org has it, but not about, is your integration user using sysadmin privileges and things like that. They're lacking that communication between the C-level and their project teams. They're not opening up those lines of communication. Project teams are afraid to reach out. It's going to delay the project. Budget's going to go up. And so it's more of a punitive system than a reward system for finding security issues in projects. There's lacking of the training processes and adoption of these protocols. And as I mentioned earlier, they're really misunderstanding that shared responsibility model. So not saying that this is the executives themselves, but really the executives running these programs and pushing the policies down, enforcing these different things. They're not understanding it. So they're not enforcing other policies or pushing the policies down because of these reasons, which is part of that problem, which is causing some of these data breaches. Now let's talk about the project teams and why they fail at securing their Salesforce data. Again, security teams project teams in Salesforce, they know their Salesforce really well, but they don't understand security frameworks. In generally speaking, there is no dedicated security role, at least not normally in Salesforce projects. So if I ask them what is the NIST threat response life cycle and explain it to me, most Salesforce admins probably couldn't tell me that. And so that's where kind of this problem starts to happen. You've got your security teams, which know a lot about security and nothing about Salesforce. You've got their Salesforce project teams that know a lot about Salesforce, but not anything about real security outside of profiles, permission sets, and roles. So this is kind of where that breakdown is starting. And then a lot of the project teams start looking at from a project perspective, and that's again being brought back down for the C-level. They're looking at security as a roadblock. Sometimes if they find an issue, they push it under the carpet. They put a Band-Aid on it instead of actually bringing it up because they're afraid to engage with their executives to tell them that the security issue, when they found this issue that's now going to delay the project, increase the budget. They have lack of training for the process and how to adopt different security protocols. And of course, that which leads to a lot of Salesforce misconfigurations where they're not really thinking about, hey, if I add this sharing role, is that going to expose data that somebody, that's sensitive that someone could get to? Or I have the sharing role that's connected to this trigger. And when I save the record, the user doesn't know that they're sharing a record because they changed the setting on the opportunity, which now exposes the opportunity to our partners or even publicly. So I think that's kind of if you think about, that's the underlying issues of really this awareness and this education around it. So there's one thing that I like to say a lot. So basically you think that you've got your security teams again that know a lot about security, not very much about Salesforce. You've got your Salesforce teams that understand a lot about Salesforce, not about security. You've got your executives in the middle that think everyone has it covered. And that's really the systematic problem that really needs to change in order to help stop all these data breaches that are kind of happening and help preventative. So this is not in my slide. This is since we have a little bit of time here, and I've kind of gone through almost to the end of my deck already. So a couple of things I wanted to kind of bring out too is like thinking about things like what can you do? Well, from a security perspective, your security teams, you could get with your security teams and educate them about Salesforce. You could also have your lunch and learns with the security teams educating you about security. What are some things maybe some security certifications we should be thinking about getting for our Salesforce team? What are some Salesforce certifications maybe we should think about getting for the security team? What are some good things what's a checklist maybe of the good things you should be asking versus what you're asking today? So it's really about starting to collaborate and then surfacing that up to the executives so they understand as well. And those are some of the things you can do. Okay, so let's talk about, again, how to calculate that risk and the revenue impact on this. So if you want to think about how you can calculate an attack, I spent about 6 months doing research to really just understanding what are the true costs of an attack. Because according to IBM, they say it's about $9 million that is on average for a single attack. But from what I saw in the industry, I thought that was kind of low actually. So I was like, okay, let me see what are the things that really that could, where do all these costs come from? And of course, it's different by industry and other types of criteria. But the main thing, the first thing everyone talks about is like records being breached, because records are being stolen. So then you have a cost of every record stolen, and there's things like the raw cost is really think about credit monitoring. And I think credit monitoring costs on average about $20 a month or something like that. So multiply that by 12, and then by there was one breach I saw where it was 1 million people records got stolen for 1 million people. So imagine how much that could cost for every single, if you have to do credit monitoring on every single person for every single record that got stolen. And then you start thinking about, okay, what does that lead to now? Loss of trust, because your customers don't trust you with their data anymore. So I'll talk about like what is that? Alliance Travel. That was one of the ones that got breached. Every time I see Alliance Travel on Marriott, on Hilton, on American Airlines, I will go out of my way to book other insurance because I knew Alliance got breached. I will not do business with them anymore. How many other customers are like that? How much revenue did they lose now because of that breach? And also, how much is it now going to cost them to get that money back after that breach? So that's kind of where we start looking at what's the average value per customer that you're losing, and then what's that cost to acquire that new customer. If you look at that together, you're really, marketing is expensive. So if you're let's say your average customer is your subscription services, maybe 20,000 a customer, you lost 10% of that customers, that's a lot of money. Then how much is your cost to acquire a new customer? Marketing is expensive. So now you're going to start adding on to that. So we're talking millions and millions and even hundreds of millions of dollars. Especially go back to JLR Land Rover we just saw, that was in the billions. So there's a lot of stuff. Also think about like hours down. There's a metric I think I saw out there where it wasn't from a data breach, but I think it was Delta United. Their site was down for, I think it was 8 hours or 4 hours, and it cost them $110 million just for being down for 4 hours. Imagine what it costs Amazon to go down. I mean, these are some major things you're thinking about, and that's really, and then legal fines, reputation, GDPR. There's a lot of stuff in there built into these costs. So I built a cost calculator here. If you're interested, you can click on that. You can, it's like a kind of that name your own adventure kind of thing. You could put in your own numbers. You can just to play around, and you could see what an actual cost would to cost you to for that breach in your organization. And so, okay, so now the next topic is really communicating risk, org inheritance, communicating risk exercise. This is a fun little exercise since we have so many people here watching. This will be really fun. But so basically, this is a kind of like a Where's Waldo of security. And so I think this requires audience participation. So maybe Janine, Srinivas, others that are on the call, if you want to like call out to me really quick, what do you see here that are security issues that we're seeing today on this slide?
The SAP one is a grant credential.
I see the API for full access, modify all data.
Yep, the clone of sysadmin for your integration profile. You got full access, modify all data, login IP addresses not set. What others do we see here?
Only locking sessions IP and login.
Yep. We've got, here's a nice one. Your Capado, their CI/CD token was last rotated in 2024.
Oh, God.
Mm-hmm.
They've got password grant OAuth over here going on here.
Yeah.
You've got a a Gong they installed. It's a not formally installed package. One of those those unapproved packages that just got installed by a sales rep. You've got some other, this is not bad there. So we've got some issues going on here. So this is kind of a little fun exercise.
Yeah.
So if I come over here, I think that we've already did the exercise. I don't know why there's 2 here. That's interesting. So, okay. So back over here. So now there's 10, I think there might be more than 10, but these are the big ones. So we had single integration user across 6 vendors. I didn't catch that one myself, actually, originally on my own slide. But so shared integration user that has sysadmin access. Modify all data permission set on God mode on your integration user. That's across multiple vendors. The IP restrictions are only validating on login, but not after the session's been established, which is even worse for, you think about, integration users that's using OAuth. Well, once that OAuth is established, you're no longer using IP restrictions at that point, if you configure it that way. You've got some password, using username and password for your SAP integration. The Gong, as we said, was not installed normally. It's user was self-authorized that. Clone the sysadmin profile, so it's inheriting all sysadmin profile. We already talked about, IP ranges were not set. Capado, oh yeah, they had the all metadata scope, everything you could possibly access, and sysadmin again. Really dangerous combination. I think Snowflake was all objects, and it reads everything, even though it's not required, not needed for everything. And the last security review was 14 months ago, so there's zero governance in that org. So I think these are a lot of things. It's like, think about, like, one of the things I will mention is, let's talk about this single integration user or multiple integration user across 6 vendors. Because I think in the sysadmin, this is the thing we see more often than not in orgs where you have a single integration admin user across all these vendors. So we think about like the Gainsight, the Drift breaches, where it was the vendor that got breached and all of their tokens for all of their customers got breached. So that means, if you have integration users, it's maybe you're not afraid of your vendor doing something mischievous, but if your vendor gets breached, that person that breached your vendor has now access to all of your Salesforce data, because they're now sysadmin. Also, if you have multiple vendors using the same admin, that's just increasing your blast radius. And also, you don't know which vendor did what, because you can't really trace what they did in the org if it's the same integration user as well. You're not able to trace it. So you've got a multiple of things there that's really dangerous from that, and it's been proven recently why you should not be doing that. So see, we're running out a little bit of time. So I think this is a little exercise that we were going to do, but let me see here, based on what you see here, what's the thing here? Okay, so yeah, this is fun. So let's do this. We still have some time. So you have 60 seconds with the CEO tomorrow, CIO tomorrow morning. Based on what you see here, what's the one thing that you would tell them, and what would you ask for? So now that you know what you know here that I've been talking about. Any takers? You're in the elevator with the CIO. What do you tell your CIO? Should I call someone out?
We're talking about the weather, right?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
I'll tell you what. I mean, Srini, you want to give a shot at it?
yeah, I would definitely say like the multiple integration users used across, and give the high level overview of the risk what we are currently used. The data could be potentially at the risk of a breach, and we need to tighten the security controls and least privilege, zero trust architecture, those things.
Yep. Yeah. So I think what I would start with, if I have the CIO in the elevator, I got 60 seconds. My first elevator pitch was, I'm not sure if you realize that we're using Salesforce in our enterprise today, but and I'm not sure if you're aware, but there were more than 960 Salesforce orgs with companies like us that were breached in the last several months. I'm concerned that potentially we could be the next one, and we don't have the proper controls in place. And then that would be kind of how I would start and open that conversation with the CIO, is show him or her the real risk that other companies like us have experienced. And then you can open up that conversation to other people, to other things where now he's interested or she's interested in that conversation, right? Versus if you're going to try to just go low level technical, they're probably going to run into those roadblocks that you would have with other people, with the executives, because the executives don't understand about Salesforce. They don't know the technology about it as well. And maybe depending on the role, maybe they're not that technical as well, but they do understand financial risk, they understand financial loss, they understand what's happening in the news, what could impact your organization, because something similar that another organization has. And that's where I'd start with it. And then I'd open up a little bit more to what the risks that we could potentially have. Like our security team that's doing security reviews isn't asking the right questions. They're asking questions that are not relevant to Salesforce, leaving gaps open, and this is exactly what happened to all those other companies that were breached recently. So this is really how I would open that up to a CIO. All right, we have, I think that's pretty much it. So we're out of time, it looks like, but I think the big thing that we just want to get across with this whole talk is Salesforce data security is everybody's responsibility. It's not just your responsibility. So you listen to Cody, and then read my short. Only you can protect Salesforce data breaches or data breaches in Salesforce. So that's why we mean it's your responsibility, and only you can protect yourself from data breaches in Salesforce. Don't rely on someone else. Don't rely on your security team. Don't rely on the project team. It's everyone's responsibility, security, and it's the company to stop this. Last thing I'll kind of mention before we open the floor for questions. I do a community event every 2 weeks, which is Salesforce Security Office Hours, which really was designed to help create a forum where experts can present on different things you can do and take action today on your security in your Salesforce environment, and getting you in front of these experts so you can ask any question you want that's burning in your mind, having access to security and what you could be doing to actively be protecting your work and your data. So anyway, thank you so much. And I'd love to open it up for questions now for anybody that has questions.
Yeah, Matt, I have a question. So maybe this is more expanding that 60 minutes, 60-second pitch to the C-suite. But if we have to present a security assessment to the C-suite, how do you frame risk around business impact and trade-offs rather than gaps or control deficiencies?
Actually, it's an excellent question. So funny, I've been doing some sales training for my sales team recently, and we were talking yesterday actually about pain. And everyone has a different type of pain that they have that you're addressing. And pain is the best way to get someone's attention if you get the pain. The pain, so pain to a CIO is not about Salesforce doesn't have security controls. The pain, is not that, is not the fact they don't have this Salesforce Shield installed, for example. The pain to them, pain is personal. So think of that, double P, pain is personal. So there's two things people really care about. It's really staying out of jail and making more money. Staying out of jail could be you don't get in trouble, you don't get sued, you don't lose your job, you lose your bonus. So think of the pain from a CIO it's really about it's financial. It's their responsibility to ensure that the company doesn't have any data breaches. If they feel like that they're going to be responsible for a data breach, you're kind of reached the first top level of that pain layer. And then you dig deeper. I'm a fan of like the 5 whys to start, going deeper that, well, why are they caring about that? Well, because, the company gets breached, then customer records, his data is stolen, then that maybe eventually they get fired. And so I would think about when you're trying to present this to them, what are the things they care about? That's why I went for the first of relating it to them, like giving them that fear that they could be breached because all these other companies were breached. It's not fiction. It's not hearsay. It's in the news. There are companies just like just like yourselves that are being breached. Now we don't have the controls in place, just like those other companies did, the checks and balances that can keep us safe. And so we are a prime candidate for the next thing. So really, I think it's about getting the first attention for the thing that drives them, the thing that pain that is relevant to them personally. And then you can drive it a little bit deeper once they're in Q&A mode. Then you can start explaining, okay, well, what do we do about this? Well, security, first off, you need to get security educated about Salesforce security. Get them asking the right questions. We need to create a systematic security assessment that we can implement. We need to get lunch and learns with the security team and the Salesforce team together, so both of us can ensure that we're asking the right questions. So this Salesforce team, since they're on the ground, knows what to look for as well, knows the frameworks for their own assessment when they're developing. So that's kind of how I would start with it. Start high, understand their pain, understand something real, then start digging in a little bit deeper until you get that Q&A mode. So then you can start recommending actual actionable things that they can do that will make a change in the organization. But also remember, they are not hands-on, they're policy driven. So you need to tell them, what changes do we need to make so that this doesn't become a problem anymore? They don't care about the code, they just care about the policies and the systems that they can implement in their organization to fix those problems. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Makes sense.
Any other questions?
Hey, Matt, I would like to dig a little bit into then, like, what do you ask of CIO and how, and like kind of going down the ladder a little bit of like what like specific actions you can ask. Like, I guess like out of CIO, you can ask something like, I need your support to get people at the same table, but then like it's how do you structure it that way?
And I'll kind of be very similar answer to the last one, is like, why? So CEO, think of it. I had to take, when I was working at Salesforce years ago, the C-level training boot camp, and really got you to think about the C-level and how to approach the C-level, what to talk about. So you need to get in their head first off. Think about what's important to them. What are they? So people are asking them things all the time. They have limited time. They're trying to think about what's the next thing always. If you take a lot of their time, you ramble, you go too low level, they're gonna just stop listening to you, right? Or maybe even yell at you. I don't have time for this. I don't understand what you're asking me, right? So you need to think about at their level, giving those high level issues, right? The high level problems, because again, they're focused on very results driven. So what is the result that we're not getting today? What is the risk we're not getting today? That's why I would always open up with a problem that you've identified in the organization that they're responsible for that is currently not being solved. And then that's kind of where I would start. Then again, that gets that conversation opened up. So now they're interested, and you can start to get a little deeper. But the lower you get, the more danger it is that they're not going to listen to you unless you've already captured their attention, and then they start asking you the questions specifically. So everything should always be actionable. Everything should always be, outcome driven of what you can do and what outcome will that produce. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I feel the same way. I've got very little time running my company, and all the little things take my time. I mean, I barely even have time to read my email half the time. So I want to see those outcomes. Give me the problem, and then tell me how to fix it, or tell me who can fix it. Don't just bring me this problem or start telling me this low level thing that takes you 10 minutes to explain to me, because then I'm going to lose focus. And I'm going to be thinking about the other thing that I'm missing because you're taking too long to explain to me what you need or what you want or what is the problem.
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, any other questions from our gigantic audience today? All right.
Well, I really appreciate you joining us, Matt, and talking about this very timely topic. Super important that we're all thinking about security all the time. I think things seem like they're getting worse and not better. And I don't know what the long-term solution is to that, but I think it's really good to keep this conversation going in the community and reminding people that it's everybody's responsibility to think about it and to raise issues when you see them or when you hear about them, and and help your employers and help your friends. Don't let friends have insecure orgs. I don't know.
That's for sure, I think.
I maybe I'll just go suggest that right now. I say, or that's your next shirt, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think this is super important stuff, and I appreciate you coming and talking to us about that.
Of course.
I did take some screenshots of the QR codes that he presented. I will post those in our in the meeting wrap up as well as the video when I figure out where it goes.
Maybe Janine will get your picture on here later,
Oh.
speaker collage here. So
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I'd have to be knowledgeable enough to be able to answer questions. So we'll
you
see.
never know. So awesome.
I'll strive to be included on the picture collage.
Yeah,
You do need
there
some
you
more
go.
female energy.
That is very true. We had a really good one last week. I think Mala from DocuSign, she was great.
Ah, cool.
She was talking about Salesforce security certifications you could get in, to your expand your knowledge in Salesforce on security. So that was a cool one. But anyway, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate inviting me on to the meeting. But looking forward to next time.
Why is there no security certification at Salesforce?
There is, but it's not that deep.
But is it one of the architecture ones, or is it
security and sharing?
Okay, yeah, but that's not that doesn't.
Yeah,
No.
it's
And
not
that's
really
called sharing and visibility. That's not security.
Yeah, it's about creating your permission sets, having the right permissions, but not truly about.
That's not really security. Sorry,
yeah.
That's permissions and role based. That's how to function. That's not. I wouldn't think of that as security. I know we talk about it a lot in architect circles. Architecting for secure solutions and such. But I feel like you could make a recommendation for a security focused.
Well, I think there should be a security focused cert for sure. That goes a lot deeper. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Awesome. Any last questions? Anyone have anything else they want to share? Anything coming up? All right. Well, with that, we'll wrap things up and let everybody get back a whole 20 minutes before your next meeting. I know that's my case. So I really appreciate y'all for coming, and certainly let us know if there's anything you want to hear about in these sessions, in these monthly meetings, and we'll try to bring you the content that you're most interested in.
And if anybody is working on any architect certifications, people drop off. I thought of this.
Go on.
But yeah, no, if anybody's thinking about taking any architect certification sometime soon, I am thinking about starting some study groups. So I'll post about it in our Slack. If you're not in it, please join. And that's where we're going to share all the information, and looking forward to engaging with you again.
Yep. Awesome.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks all.
Bye, Kat.